There's a storm across the valley, the clouds are rolling in. The afternoon is heavy on your shoulders. There's a truck out on the 4-lane, a mile or more away. The whining of his wheels just makes it colder.
Welcome to Community Forum. Today is September 4th, 2024, and today we are happy to have as our guest Christina Refford, who is chair of what was formerly the town's Green Communities. And she's going to talk about a new name, a new mission, and what it's all about for most of us in the audience. Welcome, Christina.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about your role as chair. First of all, what's the new name?
The new name is the Environmental Stewardship Committee, and we just changed it in March. We wrote a new mission and kind of new points of what we were going to be covering.
I see. And what was the impetus to changing that name? What did you want to emphasize?
So the Green Communities Committee served the town for many years. And when it was formed, it was largely an energy-based committee, and it was based on a state initiative which awarded grants to towns that reached certain benchmarks and goals for becoming a green community. Before I joined, the town had already become a green community, and the committee had actually disbanded for a couple of years. So when I joined, our mission was in the same vein as the Green Communities Committee, but we also started to broaden it to include things like information about how to recycle better, how to save water, as well as the energy savings initiatives that had been started before. But the town's adherence to the Green Communities mission was all managed by the DPW. We actually didn't have any jurisdiction over the reporting of the Green Communities Committee goals. So as we talked, we realized that while the Green Communities Committee was an important committee for the town, we wanted to broaden what we were doing and make a mission that better reflected what it is that our committee is doing. And so as recently as March, we came up with a new mission statement and new goals and initiatives, which we had presented to the town administrator as well as the select board.
So tell us, could you read for us the mission statement?
Yes, so the mission statement is the Environmental Stewardship Committee's mission is to promote environmental health and sustainability through awareness, education, and initiatives that will empower community members to be change agents for a greener, more environmentally friendly Easton. And the idea is we have so much information and we get so much information, we want to be the committee that helps get that information out to the general public and lets people know the different programs that they can do, the different rules that are in place, why those rules are in place, as well as ways that they might be able to even save money by doing making some environmentally friendly changes in their lives.
So tell me, what are some of the ways that you get your message out to the community?
So that's been a bit of a challenge. We are a town committee, so we don't have our own Facebook page. We work with the town and put Facebook messages out through their social media. We use the Town Crier newsletter to get messages out. Certainly losing the Easton Journal a few years ago was not great for communication, from a communication standpoint. We also try to meet with other committees, and we go to the NRT Harvest Fair every year and try to get our message out that way. We also have a very large initiative that we've been working on for the last couple of years to create a resource guide, because what we found was we have so much information and just feeding it out drip by drip is not easy when everything is so, there's so many messages people are being bombarded with every day, that we decided to create a full document that kind of brings together the three main areas that we focus on, which are energy savings, waste management and recycling information, and water conservation and water conservation initiatives.
So tell me, is that resource guide available for people?
It will be soon. It's getting finished at this moment. We've had it go out to, we've talked to both Sean Duggan and Connor Reed have had copies of it. And what they're doing is they've passed it out to some key people at the DPW, at Health and Community Resources, Fire Department, anyone that has parts of it that are touched upon in the guide, for them to kind of vet the information and make sure it's current, that's correct. And we're hoping to debut it in its form at the NRT Harvest Fair at the beginning of October, where people can scan a QR code with their phone and get access to the guide. We talked about publishing something in paper form, but that seems to kind of go against our ethos, like our green, conserving energy by putting out a lot of paper. So we're looking at ways that we can get it out to people in a larger way digitally.
Well, it certainly can be put on the town website.
Yep, it will be there. Yep.
And now, did you say that you have a website?
Well, we have a page on the town website. So like any committee, we have a page, and we have put information on that bit by bit. So there's information about, one of the big things that we find is people don't really know what to recycle anymore. There's so much conflicting information, especially around plastics. And so we have put the tool from Recycle Smart on there, where you can actually just click on it, and it's almost like it is a search bar where you go in and you put in, like, I have a plastic pail and shovel for my kids. Like, what do I do with this? And it'll tell you what to do. And then we have also other programs listed on our website. But this guide will be much more comprehensive. It takes into account a lot of different areas, things that are published in different parts of the town website, and kind of brings it together so that people have like a one-stop. And we've indicated things that will help actually save you money with a little $ on the listing, so that if you see something and you see it has a $, it's a program or an initiative that can actually save money for people too, because that's important.
Yeah, of course. If you can be environmentally sensitive and save money at the same time, it's a win-win.
Yep, definitely, definitely.
Mm-hmm. And what do you hope people will take from all of this? Are you hopeful that the community will be receptive?
I think so. I mean, I think, as anything, there's always, there's going to be people who absolutely want nothing to do with this, and then there's going to be people who are really appreciative of it and get a lot of information out of it. So, our hope is basically to help kind of shine a light on some of these programs that maybe people don't really even know are out there. And just, we think that people, obviously people want to save money. That's an easy one. But I think a lot of people do want to find ways to help, especially for the next generation, make sure that we have clean drinking water and that we have enough energy to, power our homes, and also, waste management is a huge issue. We know the saying is there's no away. You say I'm going to throw it away. Well, where is away? You're either sending it somewhere else to sit in a landfill, you're either burning it, and then that goes into the atmosphere. And in some cases, you're able to recycle things, which is great, but I think that there's a lot of confusion, and so we're just trying to help people kind of understand things a little better. Some things have changed over the years. One example I'll give you is when I was younger, we all looked at the bottom of the plastic things to see what the little triangle said for it to do. And that's not the case anymore. The triangle means nothing. And now it's based on shape. And so we give people concrete examples of like what shape plastics are we looking at. We're looking at like jugs and tubs, and there's different, different terminology there to help demystify some of the questions about what is recyclable in plastic.
So what do you feel is the most important aspect of what you're doing? What's the most important environmental impact that you hope will happen, that people will listen to? If you were to prioritize the goals of your your committee, how would you how would you prioritize?
Yeah, I think that was a tricky thing too. Even when I started in the committee, I felt very overwhelmed. I don't have a background in environmental studies or anything like that. I'm just a regular Eastonite who has an interest in the subject. And there's so many things and so many areas we can go into, which is why as a committee, we decided to focus on 3 main kind of core areas. And we really do give them all equal weight. They're the energy component, the waste management component, and the water component. And I think they're all important. I think that they all have their challenges. Within water, for instance, PFAS is a huge issue, which I think a lot of people are becoming more aware of. And we've talked to the town and helped try to get the message out about what the town has done to help get rid of PFAS in our drinking water. But then on top of that, and that's going to be a huge, kind of worldwide issue that's coming to the forefront. We're hearing stories of farmers whose cows' milk is contaminated with PFAS because of the fertilizer that they're using. And I mean, this is out in the Midwest, and they're finding PFAS contamination in unborn fetuses. They're finding PFAS in contamination in people who live in remote islands. This is going to be a huge issue. And so one thing we're trying to tell people is it's fantastic that Easton has gotten the level of PFAS in our drinking water down to a negligible 0. But there's so many other areas people need to understand that this substance is found, and trying to educate people about those different things and choices they can make that might reduce their exposure long term.
So tell, for those people who are listening who aren't familiar with PFAS, we know they're also called forever chemicals.
Yes.
They're in our bodies because of what we ingest. But tell us exactly what they are. I know there are thousands of them.
So I had to write the real term down because I can never get this quite right, but it's per and polyfluoroalkyl substances. So grateful that we call them PFAS. They're basically a substance that has been used for decades, and there's thousands of them. Many of them are proprietary to the chemical companies that have developed them, and so unfortunately we only have like the chemical makeup of probably a few dozen of them. But the idea is that these are chemicals that are or substances that are so tiny that and they just don't break down. So again, they are forever chemicals. There is some new technology that's being developed to try to actually kill them or get rid of them, but that's still a ways away. And it's basically in everything at this point. It's gotten into drinking water. It's basically, the easy way to remember it is it's used to make things waterproof, and it's used as a coating to make things non-stick. So for instance, non-stick cookware, much of that has PFAS chemicals in it. Makeup, a lot of makeup has PFAS in it. Anything that's waterproof. They found a few years ago that one of the reasons Easton may have had such a high level in our drinking water was because of the mosquito pesticide spraying. And it wasn't that the pesticide itself had PFAS, but the barrels that they were stored in had PFAS, and that was leaching into the chemicals that we were then spraying across the entire town.
So is there a campaign to convince people to get rid of those Teflon pans and I guess some of the sprays that people put on upholstery to keep them clean?
Yeah, so there is a bigger concerted effort. One of the things we're doing with the guide is trying to let people know like what those products are and to direct them to other sources that will help them make the right choice when they're purchasing or looking into buying new things. In some cases, there's not a lot of alternatives. It is a really tricky thing because I wouldn't say it's a new issue, but it's definitely new on the national radar where they're making more stringent determinations. The tricky thing is that even a lot of the filters that we use don't filter out PFAS, like your regular water filter will not do it. That's why the town had to invest in those filtration plants. And yeah, so one of the things that we're doing with the guide is letting people know kind of what it is, what has the town done? Easton's actually been at the forefront of a lot of it, and you can see even on our webpage or on the PFAS webpage on the town website, it'll outline a lot of the things that the town has done. You know, Easton's even involved in a lawsuit to go after some of these large companies to help recoup the costs that we've had to incur to try to get PFAS out of our water. So, you know, a lot of that's available on the town website. So I would encourage people who want to learn more about it. You can read the documents that have come out of it from a town level, a state level, and also a federal level.
So tell our audience also why PFAS is so dangerous.
Well, it's been linked to a lot of different, you know, like thyroid cancers and other developmental issues. Again, it accumulates in the body, so it doesn't wash away. And so the more that have accumulated in the body, we're finding can be detrimental to the health of people. And a lot of this is a lot of it is known, but a lot of it is new. So I think people are just starting now to learn, and the science is kind of catching up with the consequences. So that is the reason why we're pretty aggressively trying to get this out of our water and our bodies.
Well, I know from a lot of recipe sites that the old cast iron fry pan is back.
Yep. I've turned to all cast iron pans and stainless steel for cooking, and once you figure them out, they're great. They take a little bit of a learning curve, but and if I see one of my family soap washing my cast iron again, they've all kind of learned how to deal with it. But yeah, it's funny to go back to like kind of the old school cooking appliance is one of the best things you can do.
And also, when you use the cast iron, you're also getting a little bit of iron to boost your health and keep healthy. So, but there's so many advertisements about, you know, showing how the eggs just slip right off that pan, and anything that's slippery is a warning sign for PFAS, big time. And I know that Easton firefighters now are getting PFAS-free clothing to wear at a fire. And previously, I think up to this year even, they were subjected to PFAS in their outer gear because the water would just flow right off it. I mean, that was the whole point. That's why PFAS materials were so popular.
Right.
But when they discovered that firefighters were dying of cancer at a rate much higher than the population, most communities are realizing that they have to get new PFAS-free outer gear for their firefighters.
Right, yeah, so we're pretty confident as a committee that the town has great leadership and has been doing a fantastic job of trying to get ahead of this problem and educating and finding out as much information and being kind of at the forefront of all of this. So our goal isn't necessarily to write new legislation. That's not really our committee's purpose for being, but it's more of educating people, like what is it? Where can you find more information? And that's really what we're trying to do. And that's kind of what we're doing with everything that we're learning about. If I can give you another example, disposal of textiles, clothing, is a huge issue in waste management. People tend to throw their clothes in the trash when they don't want them anymore if they don't give them away or resell them. And that's not a good thing to do. There are programs that the town has with a company called Helpsy, where you can bag up 3 bags of clothing, unused clothing, shoes, pocketbooks, accessories, and they'll come actually once a month out to Easton and pick those bags up. And then they go and they separate them. And they have, we actually went to an open house back in June of 2023 to see their warehouse and hear about their processes, and it is fascinating. I mean, it's like any kind of industry where you dig in and you find out like what's going on, and it's truly so interesting to find out all the channels that textiles can go to and the things they can be turned into. when we no longer need them.
So how long has this program been available?
A few years, post-COVID as far as I know, but I don't remember the exact year we started our program with HelpC, but it's been a few years.
Okay, and that's available for Easton residents?
If you go to the DPW website, I believe we also have a link on our webpage, but the DPW will have a lot of information about the different programs available. Our committee also took a tour of Waste Management's material recovery facility to see what happens with your recycling, which we did that again spring of 2023, and that was also incredibly interesting in terms of what happens when your recycling goes to this facility. How do they sort it? What are the things that get into the recycling that really shouldn't be there? We were very happy to see right before COVID struck in November of 2019, the committee pushed a ban on single-use plastic bags in the town. And COVID undid a lot of that good. I think right after it passed, a lot of people were using their reusable bags finally. And then COVID struck a few months later, and the state said, can't bring your own bags in anymore. Went back to the single-use bags. And I think it's just been hard to get people back onto the reusables again.
So will the resource guide spell out, for example, something that I had no idea was available, and that is the clothing recycling?
Yes.
Will that spell it out?
Yep.
I mean, that is wonderful.
Yeah, the guide has actually a lot of different recycling options, like what do I do with styrofoam? What do I do with my, if you are diabetic and you have the needles, where do I send those? Where can I send unused prescription bottles? We kind of lay out, we tried to think of like everything that people have that they're like, can I recycle this? And give people avenues for ways to recycle those things, because it is confusing. One thing that we try to tell people, when in doubt, throw it out, is sort of a quote that a lot of recycling places use, which may sound anti-recycling, but in essence, if you're not sure and you don't want to take the time to go onto a search engine like the Recycle Smart Recyclopedia, which is where you type in the item to see if it's recyclable, you're probably better putting it in the trash, because it's probably not recyclable if you have that much of a question about it. What happens is when these trucks come in and all the recycling's dumped out, so people have to sort all of that. And if a lot of it is trash and not recycling, that trash has to then be trucked away and sent to a disposal facility for trash. And the more of that has to happen, the more we're going to see our trash rates go up and up and up. So what we're trying to get people to understand, that recycling is definitely the way to go, but only for the things that should be recycled. And there's a lot of confusion about that, but again, the guide will have a list of the things that should never be recycled, just so people can kind of if they can get that kind of mastered, then I think that'll clean up the recycling a lot. One of the things we found when we talked to the people at the recycling facility was these plastic bag bans have actually helped them a lot. They see much fewer single-use plastic bags. A lot of people would hear plastic bag, they hear the word plastic, they put it in the recycling, and those bags would just get caught up in all the rotors. Somebody's got to actually pull it out. Like you can imagine if you're vacuuming and something gets caught in your vacuum, it's kind of the same idea, except it's a huge
well, let me just say this. Those of us who go to Market Basket, they have a recycling plastic bag in the place where you bring your empty cans.
Yes.
So I recycle not just bags, but also other plastic bags that stuff comes in.
Yeah.
Now, I'd like to say one thing. I just came back from visiting my family in Sweden, and one of my cousins' son and daughter-in-law with whom I stayed, they have these containers. They have a whole drawer in their kitchen that has these black containers, plastic containers with tops on them, and each one has a different recycling purpose. One is compost, one is plastic, another one is just trash, and another is metal and so forth. And another one is cardboard, and so they then take those and bag them and go to a recycling place right there on the island. And it is very busy. Everybody does it. And when I went to other people's homes, I saw these same containers in their kitchens, in a drawer, hidden away, and everything gets recycled. Even the plastic wrap gets put into the plastic container. In other words, the container for plastic. And it was amazing. So we have done away with separating ourselves. Now that would certainly lower the cost that you're talking about, employees having to separate it. Whatever happened? Why did we? There was a time when we did put our plastic in a separate place, our glass in another place.
Yep, I remember that.
Forth.
Yep. I clearly remember having all the different bins in the garage, and
yes.
my father chasing us around if we put them in the wrong bin.
Yes, and then, but even on Cape Cod, I know they still do. They have recycling centers, and people bring all of these different newspapers, glass, plastic, cardboard. There's a dumpster for all of these. And why can't Easton do that?
I think it's partially because of trash pickup. So, for instance, I work in the town of Lakeville, and I know they have a landfill where you can bring your, I don't think they call it not a landfill, but they have a facility where you bring and you separate things as you go along, and drop off your recycling.
And the other thing that I noticed on the Cape was there's a place for people to bring their furniture and so forth. I mean, so sometimes whole couches and all, and they will be recycled and so forth. But then people do leave good items there in front of the dumpsters for people to take. And so the whole thing is a wonderful system. Now that is in Falmouth. Falmouth might have them, but it was in Yarmouth. I remember my family had a home in West Yarmouth, and we would go there every week to recycle stuff and drop off things that we didn't want anymore. And so I realized that Easton negotiates a contract with the waste management people who offered this recycling portion, and so maybe the waste is conditional upon having that recycling component. I don't know. But it would seem to me that going back to going to the dump where we could have different containers for different recyclables might be a very good idea to promote. What do you think?
Yeah, well, so I think that it's called single stream recycling, meaning everything goes into the same recycling bin, which is what most of us use. Like with waste management, we have the big yellow lidded recycling bin. That is, it's easy, and I think it probably increases the number of people who are willing to do recycling. If you have to go somewhere and drop off your recycling, that's another step. And honestly, I think people have just become used to the single stream. Our goal is to educate people on what should go into that bin versus changing the entire policy, because obviously if we were to do a recycling facility, that requires finding the land, getting the approval from the people around the land to set up a recycling facility. And maybe that's a goal in the future, but for now, I think that our mission is to let people know what it is that should go in there.
Okay, well, we're coming to the end of the interview time.
Okay.
So, I would suggest and submit that maybe it's something to look into to see those places on the Cape where they do have those facilities and how successful it is. Okay, well, Christina Refford, Chairman of the Environmental Stewardship Committee, thank you so much for being my guest today, and good luck, and thank you for all of the dissemination of information that you're providing, and we thank you again. We'll be on the lookout for that guide, resource guide that we can download from the town website.
Great, thank you so much for having me here.
You're very welcome. Until next time, be well.